I discovered my boss had been systematically poisoning my medication for months. I couldn't believe the perfect mask hid a monster. Fluorescent lights buzzed above my head, harsh and unrelenting. My hand shook as I gripped the sterile hospital clipboard, staring at the words the doctor had just spoken. Connor, these symptoms are consistent with deliberate poisoning. This wasn't an accident. I felt the air leave my lungs, a cold, hollow emptiness spreading through my chest. My vision narrowed to the white wall, the ticking of the clock pounding like a drum in my ears. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Andrew, my father, had called. I didn't answer. I couldn't. 2 hours earlier, I'd been sitting at my desk at work, sipping lukewarm coffee, laughing at Luke's stupid jokes about spreadsheets. That Tuesday morning had been like any other. Fluorescent lights, the faint smell of burnt toast from the break room, the hum of printers. Luke, my boss, the guy everyone adored, had slid a cup of tea across the desk to me, smiling wide. I made this for you, he'd said. Don't tell anyone, okay? I'd smiled back. Thanks, Luke. But there was something off about the tea. A faint chemical bite under the lemon. My stomach had churned slightly, but I shrugged it off. Luke had always been meticulous, exacting, but charming in a way that made you forgive everything. Now, sitting in the ER, I realized that charm had been a mask. A perfect mask hiding a monster. The doctor repeated the words slowly, deliberately, as if I could absorb them faster if I listened carefully. It wasn't random. The pattern matches long-term exposure to a substance that weakens the liver and kidneys. Someone has been manipulating your medication over months. I swallowed, my throat dry. My hands went to my stomach. A dull ache twisted into sharper pangs, making my chest tighten. I tried to think, tried to piece together the months of nausea, the dizzy spells, the doctor visits that had always ended with, "It's stress, Connor." Stress didn't make my hair fall out in clumps. Stress didn't make me faint in the parking lot. I remembered that funeral service 3 weeks ago. Andrew beside me, shaking, gripping my shoulder like if he held tight enough, he could shield me from the grief. The cold autumn air bit at my neck, damp with rain. I thought about how Luke had cornered me afterwards, whispering in his smooth, poisonous tone, "I'll take care of everything, you just stay strong." At the time, I nodded, relieved, trusting. Part of me knew, even then, something was off. Little things, the way he always watched my coffee cup, the way he lingered near my desk, the subtle smirk when someone mentioned my medications. But I told myself I was imagining it. Luke was the type of man everyone praised. He was the boss everyone wanted, the mentor, the steady hand. No one suspects the steady hand of holding a knife behind their back. My phone vibrated again. This time I answered. Andrew's voice cracked through the line. "Connor, you're at the hospital. What happened?" I'm fine, I whispered, but it was a lie. They say it wasn't an accident. There was a long pause. Then, a low, trembling voice. "I'll be there. Stay awake, son. Don't let him win." I'll not before I could hear more. My heart was racing. The walls seemed to close in. I pressed my forehead against the cold metal edge of the gurney, the faint antiseptic smell making me gag slightly. Months of vague illness, hospital visits, sleepless nights, all of it clicked together. Luke had poisoned me. Purposefully. Systematically. Flashback, it started 6 months ago, subtle and almost invisible. I'd noticed headaches after coffee breaks, minor rashes that disappeared in hours. Luke's attention, always helpful, felt like care. But he had been watching, testing. And then the medications, my doctor's prescriptions, double-checked and supposedly tamper-proof, were quietly, meticulously diluted. I remember that moment clearly. Sitting in my car outside the pharmacy, fingers trembling as I checked the label for the third time that week. "No, it's fine," I muttered to myself, though the back of my neck was sweaty, my chest tightening. Something was wrong. I could feel it. Back in the ER, I felt the first real tear slid down my cheek. Not from fear. Not yet. But from the betrayal. Someone I trusted. Someone I thought was untouchable. The nurse, noticing me staring blankly at the ceiling, asked, "Do you want water, honey?" The word honey made my stomach twist even more. I nodded, trying to manage the shaking. 3 weeks ago. That funeral. That tea. That smile. Everything was connected now. And I knew, without question, that my life had changed forever. It started small. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. That Tuesday morning, Luke leaned over my cubicle, his cologne sharp, musky, clinging to my sweater. "Connor, you're pale. You sure you're sleeping?" Yeah, fine," I muttered, even though my hands were trembling. My stomach churned. A minor headache, I thought. Nothing. But then the first real red flag hit. My prescription bottle. I'd set it on the bathroom counter before work, and when I grabbed it later, the liquid inside didn't look right. Thinner, almost watery. I shook it, but the label was untouched. I stared at it for a long time, heart thudding, then told myself, "Stop being paranoid. You're fine." 3 weeks ago, at that funeral, Luke hovered near the casket, his hand brushing my shoulder. I felt the strange pang in my chest then, a tightening that I ignored. He smiled that imperfect, disarming smile. "Don't worry, Connor. I'll take care of everything." Andrew noticed. Something about him, I don't trust him, my dad muttered as we walked to the car. I nodded quickly, pretending I agreed, but part of me felt foolish. Luke was admired by everyone. If he was dangerous, why would anyone suspect him? Red flags multiplied. Coffee cups I didn't touch, tea he brought, leftover pastries from the break room, things I'd never noticed before started making me uneasy. There was a faint chemical bite sometimes, a taste that lingered at the back of my throat. Every time I raised it with a coworker, they'd shrug. "You're imagining it. Luke's just a quirky." Then came the insomnia. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the fluorescent streetlights outside the window cutting pale lines across the room. My body felt brittle, as if every nerve were electric wire. One morning, 2 hours late to work, I nearly passed out in the parking garage. Heart racing, chest tightening. I called Andrew. Dad, something's wrong. I can't explain it. He listened, silence stretching across the line. Connor, trust your instincts. I know you. I did. But I also feared I was wrong. Lunch meetings became minefields. Luke insisted I join him, always subtly offering food or drink. Just a little bite, he'd say, smirking. I'd swallow, forcing a smile. Part of me froze, realizing I had no proof. He was untouchable. The day the coffee smelled of thick, bitter, chemical, I hesitated. The faint metallic taste on my tongue triggered the first real panic. My chest constricted. My hand shook violently, spilling the cup. Luke's eyebrows lifted, concern faint, him brushing mine. Oh, Connor, are you okay? I wanted to scream. Even friends noticed. Mia, the office manager, frowned. You're scaring me, Connor. You look sick. Are you okay? I nodded, swallowing hard, but my throat burned. 3 weeks ago, at that funeral reception, the rain still dripping off my coat, I remembered small things I'd ignored. Luke always rearranged my desk when I wasn't looking. My notebooks out of place. My water bottle gone. I must be losing it, I thought. But now I realized it wasn't me. It was him. The worst was trust. He had everyone fooled. Even Andrew had called him a good man once after meeting him at a business lunch. Luke was smooth, meticulous, patient. A predator in a tailored suit hiding in plain sight. Then came the missed appointments. My doctor questioned why I'd skipped tests. Connor, your blood pressure, your liver enzymes, this isn't normal. I muttered something about stress. Truth, what I'd begun suspecting was terrifying. Someone had been targeting me for months. Someone who could manipulate every aspect of my daily life without anyone noticing. I remember that Thursday afternoon, sitting in my car after work, rain dripping from the windshield, the heat off, windows steamed. I pressed my palms to my face, thought about all the small signs. Tea that tasted wrong. Coffee cups gone. Medication subtly altered. His smile hiding something cruel. I realized, with a sick twist in my stomach, that these were all warnings. I had been staring at them, blind, waiting for normalcy to return. At the time I walked into the hospital that evening, gasping after a dizzy spell, I knew. My life wasn't just in danger, it had been under attack for months. Luke wasn't just a bad boss. He was deliberate, meticulous, calculating. Every gesture, every smile, every helpful tip was part of a plan. And the thought that chilled me most? He hadn't been subtle. Not really. He had been perfect. And that perfection had been the weapon all along. The doctor's words echoed in my head like gunshots. Deliberate poisoning, months of exposure, someone is targeting you. My hands shook violently as I gripped the edge of the hospital bed. The fluorescent lights above buzzed, making the sterile room feel smaller, suffocating. My stomach nodded, my chest ached like it was being crushed. I felt nausea clawing its way up, cold sweat sucking my hairline. Andrew's voice broke through the haze. Connor, look at me. He was kneeling beside me, knuckles white as he held my trembling hands. We'll figure this out, I swear. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make the world notice that Luke, my boss, the man everyone trusted, was a monster. But instead, I just shook. 2 hours earlier, I had gone through my medication bottles for the third time that week. The liquid inside some looked thinner than it should have. My heart hammered as I checked expiration dates, prescription labels, even the pharmacy receipt. Every tiny deviation confirmed it. Someone had tampered with my meds. Systematically. Calculated. It hit me all at once. The dizzy spells. The fainting in the parking garage. The months of subtle illness everyone, myself included, had dismissed as stress or bad luck. Luke had orchestrated it. Every symptom, every accident had been planned, part of a slow, meticulous attack. I could feel my stomach twisting violently. My hands went to my throat, my pulse racing so hard I thought I could hear it in my ears. Andrew's face blurred as I gasped. Connor, breathe, you're okay, he said, though his own voice trembled. I couldn't calm down. Not yet. Not until the pieces fell into place. That funeral. The rain. The tea Luke had handed me afterward. He smiled, whispered, I'll take care of everything. Now I realized the care had been the danger. His attentiveness, his fake concern, every gesture had been camouflage. My phone buzzed with a message from Mia. Connor, are you okay? You look terrible this morning. I stared at the screen, trembling, the screen's light washing my sweaty face. I called her. My voice cracked. Mia, I think Luke, Connor, what? I couldn't finish. My hands were shaking, my chest tight, nausea choking me. Every memory, the coffee, the pastries, the lunches, the friendly smiles flashed back with horrifying clarity. He had built a perfect disguise. Everyone had fallen for it. Everyone. Andrew gripped my shoulder harder. You're not imagining this. We'll make them pay. We'll... I interrupted, voice raw. It's not just suspicion anymore, the doctor said it. I could have died. It was deliberate. The room seemed to tilt. My fingers dug into the thin hospital blanket. Cold antiseptic smells burned my nose. My stomach lurched, bile rising, my chest squeezing in panic. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the buzzing fluorescent lights, trying to hold on to something solid. And then the plan hit me like a freight train. The timeline. Every sick day, every weird taste, every cancelled appointment. It wasn't random. Luke had orchestrated this meticulously. He had been patient, cunning, and meticulous, watching, testing, adjusting. I could feel it, every small piece snapping together into a horrifying pattern. Mia, sensing my panic over the phone, stayed on the line. Connor, listen to me. You need proof. You need help. You're not alone. I realized she was right. I needed witnesses. Documentation. Something undeniable. I called the pharmacy, rattling off prescription numbers, asking about batch checks. I demanded copies of records. Every drop of evidence confirmed the nightmare my medication had been tampered with in subtle, repeated doses. The physical reactions were immediate. My heart raced, my body shook, and my stomach heaved violently. Andrew held the phone for me when I couldn't, nodding grimly at the pharmacy clerk's confirmation. "It's real, son," he said, voice low and tense. "It's all real. 3 weeks ago, I had thought the funeral was the worst day. That everything would be grief and tears. But this was worse. Betrayal so deep it clawed at your bones. Someone I trusted, someone who smiled while touching my shoulder, had slowly, quietly, poisoned me. I realized something else horrifyingly clear. He had planned it carefully. Months of careful observation, small manipulations, perfect timing. My accents, my fainting spells, my nausea, my fatigue, they weren't random. They were intentional. I sat there on the hospital bed, shaking, feeling the weight of my own mortality pressing down. Every memory of Luke's charm now felt like barbed wire around my chest. And in that moment, one thought became undeniable. If I didn't act fast, I wouldn't just lose my job, my trust, or my pride, I could lose my life. I waited in my car outside the family reunion, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Rain slicked the asphalt, tiny rivers running across the windshield. Luke was inside, laughing, surrounded by relatives who adored him. My chest tightened, heart hammering. Every muscle in my body screamed, "Do something." I stepped out, rain soaking through my jacket, and marched toward him. He turned, eyebrows raised, that same smooth smile plastered on his face. "Connor, didn't expect to see you here. Everything okay?" "Cut the act, Luke," I said, voice raw, trembling. "I know what you've been doing." His smile faltered for a split second, just enough for me to see it, but then returned, colder now. "What are you talking about?" "He poisoned me," I said, loud enough for the nearby relatives to turn. "Months of my medication, my coffee, everything. You were deliberate, and I have proof." Luke chuckled, a short, sharp sound. "Connor, that's insane. I've helped you, supported you." I shook my head violently. "No, you've been hiding behind a mask while trying to kill me slowly. People are going to know the truth." Andrew appeared behind me, umbrella shielding my head from the rain, eyes wide, voice low but fierce. "Connor's right, Luke, you can't." I don't understand," Luke interrupted, voice trembling now, slipping. "Connor, Andrew, you're exaggerating." "You think this is exaggeration?" I balked, pulling the folder of pharmacy records and hospital notes from my backpack, water dripping down my sleeves. "Look at this, every dose, every doctor visit, every sick day, it's all here. I nearly ended up in the ER multiple times because of you." Mia, who had arrived with Andrew, stood nearby, holding her phone. "Connor told me everything. I've read the lab results, Luke, it's true." Her voice shook. "You need to answer for this." Luke's hand went to his head. The perfect mask crumbled. I could see the calculation in his eyes, then the panic. "Connor, you can't, this isn't how." "You knew exactly what you were doing," I said, voice breaking with rage. "You used my trust like a weapon. Do you even know what that feels like?" He stepped back, trembling, words failing him. Sweat and rain mixed on his brow. "Connor, it was I didn't mean." "Didn't mean?" Andrew snapped. "You meant every moment of it." Two other relatives who had gathered, sensing the tension, whispered, horrified. One, my cousin Jenner, sighed, I never would have thought he seemed so perfect." Another, our neighbour, added, "We all thought he was a good man. I can't believe it." I didn't let him finish. I pulled out my phone, dialed the police. "Hello, I need an immediate response. I had evidence of deliberate poisoning. The suspect is at the family reunion." Luke's face went pale. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. He looked around, desperate, realizing everyone was watching. His control, the perfect image, was gone. The first police car arrived within minutes, lights flashing, splashing over the wet pavement. Officers approached, calm but firm. Luke's voice cracked as he protested, but the folder in my hands, the witnesses, the lab results, they all spoke louder than his lies. I felt something release inside me, a fraction of relief mixed with fury. Rage and fear and betrayal, all tangling inside my chest. I could feel every heartbeat, every tremor in my hands, every tightness in my stomach. Andrew held my shoulder, murmuring, "You did the right thing." Mia nodded, tears on her cheeks. "Finally, Connor, finally." As Luke was led away, cuffs clicking, his eyes darting between us, I realized something terrifyingly clear. He had seen perfect. That mask had hidden the monster completely. And for months, I had lived under it, unaware. And yet, standing in the rain, surrounded by family, phone in hand, witnesses around me, I felt a small flicker of power. Justice, at least partially, was in motion. I looked at Andrew, at Mia, at Jenna, at the neighbour who had stayed. Their eyes held disbelief, relief, and a shared understanding of what had happened. They had seen it. They had witnessed it. And in that shared moment, I felt the tiniest thread of hope. Because finally, the truth wasn't mine alone. The sound of police radios faded into the drizzle as Luke was led away, handcuffed, shoulders hunched. My chest still ached, my stomach twisted, but I could finally breathe, sort of. The adrenaline made my knees wobble. Andrew gripped my arm, steadying me, but his face was pale, tight with anger and disbelief. Inside, the reunion had turned chaotic. Relatives whispered in tight clusters, pointing at Luke, muttering about what they'd thought they knew. Some avoided eye contact, as if guilt had seeped through the walls. Others, like Jenner, hugged me fiercely. "I can't believe this. I never thought." Her voice broke. How did he hide it so well? The financial fallout hit fast. HR called while I was still in shock, asking for statements, explaining that my position was secure but investigations could take weeks. Those I hadn't been able to process because of hospital visits piled up. Every pharmacy check, Every ER visit, every missed day of work money I didn't have to spare. My bank account felt fragile, stretched thin. 2 days later, I sat in my apartment staring at the folder of evidence on the coffee table. Each sheet, each prescription record, each lab report was a reminder that someone I trusted had tried to dismantle my life. I could still feel the ache in my chest, the tremors in my hands. The physical toll had been relentless. Andrew sat opposite me, shaking his head. Connor, people don't understand how calculated this was. Months. He planned it meticulously. You're lucky to be alive. His voice wavered. I nodded, trying to focus, trying to process the chaos. Mia had been a lifeline. She stayed by my side, bringing food I couldn't stomach, organizing hospital paperwork, contacting authorities for updates. He didn't deserve this, she said softly, sitting next to me one evening, rain streaking the windows. And you stood up, you exposed him, that matters. At work, whispers followed me like shadows. Some colleagues avoided me entirely, others pretended nothing had happened. HR arranged cancelling, security measures, and temporary reassignment while the investigation continued. Every day, I relived the months of poisoning, the manipulation, the betrayal. Every small detail replayed in my mind: coffee, tea, lunches, tiny gestures of care that were really weapons. The hospital visits continued for weeks. My body fought the slow poison Luke had introduced. I felt weak, hair still thinning, skin pallid. Doctors warned me recovery would take time and some damage might be permanent. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, Andrew beside me, holding my hand, whispering, "You're strong, you'll get through this." Then came the court dates. Seeing Luke in a suit, shackles hidden under the table, face pale and defensive, sent a chill down my spine. Witnesses, Mia, Andrew, even a few co-workers testified. The reality that this wasn't just a nightmare anymore, that it was real and public, hit me in waves. Social media, of course, caught wind. Messages flooded in. Friends, distant relatives, even strangers thanking me for exposing him. Some accused me of exaggeration. Some expressed shock that someone could be so evil while wearing a perfect mask. It was exhausting, but necessary. Every post, every article, every shared story reminded me that my truth mattered. And yet, even with justice moving forward, I felt hollow. Luke had manipulated my life, used trust as a weapon, and left scars I couldn't fully erase. Nights were the hardest. The quiet moments when I replayed memories: funeral rain, tea, coffee, casual smiles all twisted now into evidence of intent. Financially, I was recovering slowly. Andrew helped with bills, Mia organised donations to cover medical costs. But the psychological damage, the paranoia, lingered. I triple-checked medications now. I avoided any drink or food he might have touched. Every minor ache made me flinch. And still, the community of witnesses mattered. Andrew, Mia, Jenna, and others stood with me, validating reality. Without them, I might have doubted my own sanity. Their support became the anchor keeping me upright amid the storm of betrayal and chaos. 3 weeks after the confrontation, I visited the ER again for a routine check. The fluorescent lights, antiseptic smell, and cold metal edges of the gurney no longer triggered panic, but I remembered. I remembered everything. The trauma, the manipulation, the fear. And I knew life would never be the same. Yet amidst the chaos, one small truth emerged: I survived. I fought. I exposed him. And while the fallout would linger, the monster behind the mask was finally gone from my life. It's been 6 months since that rainy day at the family reunion. 6 months since I dialed the police, since Luke's perfect mask crumbled, since my life was shredded and rebuilt in pieces I didn't know I had. I still check my medications 3 times before taking them. My hands tremble sometimes, even now, and my stomach knots at the memory of every small dose he had manipulated, every accident I had dismissed as bad luck. But I've learned to breathe through it, to hold on to control where I can. Andrew comes over most weekends. We sit on the porch, coffee mugs in hand, the faint smell of rain lingering in the air. We talk about normal things: gardening, old TV shows, trivial office drama. But sometimes his eyes flicker with the memory of that Tuesday morning, the hospital visits, the fear etched into my bones. "Connor," he says quietly one afternoon, "you survived him. That's all that matters." And I nod, swallowing the lump in my throat. Mia stayed close too. She organised most of my recovery, from the piles of paperwork to the quiet moments I couldn't face alone. She reminds me to laugh, to eat, to leave the apartment once in a while. One evening, as we sat on the balcony watching the city lights, she said, "You're alive. That's a victory. Connor, don't let him steal that from you." Work is complicated. Luke's absence left a void. HR shuffled responsibilities, reassigned projects, and for months I wondered if I'd ever feel safe in that office again. I still flinch when someone hands me coffee. I still hesitate when a coworker hovers too close. But I've started rebuilding boundaries, reclaiming spaces that once felt threatening. Sometimes I replay that day in my head: the rain, the confrontation, the folder of proof clutched in my hands, the flicker of panic on Luke's face. It's a loop I can't fully escape. But I also replay the moments that followed: Andrew's hand on my shoulder, his quiet support, the witnesses who refused to look away. Those are the images I cling to now. Financially, I'm stable, though I'm still repaying some hospital bills. I've learned the importance of documentation, of keeping receipts, of trusting instinct over appearances. Luke's insurance and legal fees have partially covered costs, but that doesn't erase the months of fear, the sleepless nights, the lost wages, the emotional trauma. I've realised something vital: life can be stolen slowly, in whispers, in small gestures of care that are really weapons. But life can also be reclaimed, piece by piece, with courage, evidence, and support. I think about the funeral, about the first red flag, the tea, the coffee, the subtle manipulations, and how easily I had dismissed them. And I think about every small choice since: choosing to fight, to document, to call the police, to demand accountability. Those choices saved my life. I don't know if Luke will ever fully comprehend the damage he caused. Perhaps he will, when court proceedings finalise, when he loses his reputation, when witnesses testify to his manipulation. But I've stopped hoping for his remorse. My focus now is forward. Forward is rebuilding trust, cautiously but deliberately. Forward is laughing again without immediate fear, eating without suspicion, taking a sip of coffee without trembling. Forward is living fully, even with scars physical, emotional, and psychological. Most of all, I've learned the most important truth. The people who stand with you, the Andrews, the Mias, the friends who refuse to turn away are the ones who keep you alive in more ways than medicine ever could. Sometimes, late at night, when the apartment is quiet and the city hums outside, I remember that Tuesday, the confrontation, the moment the mask slit. And I feel something simple but profound relief. Rage has faded into clarity, fear into vigilance. Life hasn't returned to what it was before. But it's mine again. And for the first time in months, I can finally feel a spark of hope, not naive, not careless, but strong enough to remind me I survived. I fought. And no mask, no matter how perfect, can ever take that away. I've changed. I'm cautious, yes. Hyper-aware, yes. But also wiser, stronger, and more alive than I've ever been. And that, in the end, is the resolution I hold on to.